Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to the History Shelf on this St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you and yours. Yes, I know some people might point out that I am not wearing green, but I will point out that I live with and soon to be married to an Irish woman. So I am steeped in Irish luck. I am rolling in Irish clover, as it were. That was weird. Martine's my lucky charm. Oh, let's see what I did there. She's not around to hear it, but she'll hear it later on. So anyway, guys, welcome back to the History Shelf. Today is like a new book Wednesday. I have a lot of books that have come in over the last few weeks, and just because life, you know, exigencies. There's a big word for you, eh? And everything else, work and everything else. And I made some other videos, which I've been wanting to do, and I've crossed off my list. But I need to cover all the new books that I have received as I get new review copies. A lot. Sometimes in the mail I get a lot of review copies, which is a great problem to have. I am not complaining at all. And a few of these I did request, so these are great books to have. So I'm going to try to get through as many as I can in this video because I have more in the hallway I need to open. And I typically don't open things on air just because it's too noisy and clunky with this microphone to be ripping open boxes, and who wants to see that? So I try to have them stacked and ready to go for you guys. But yeah, let's start off with LSU Press. I had requested 3 books from them, from their new catalog. Well, might have been the fall-winter catalog. Or no, it might be spring because I think these came out in January. Either way, these books are brand spanking new, and I love LSU Press for their antebellum and Civil War studies. These might have come out in late 2020. Let's start off with this volume. It's a smallish work, about 200 pages, and this is Bonds of Salvation by Ben Wright. How Christianity inspired and limited American abolitionism. It's a really nice cover. So let's see, I'll give you a quick read here. Ben Wright's Bonds of Salvation demonstrates how religion structured the possibilities and limitations of American abolitionism during the early years of the Republic. From the American Revolution through the eruption of schisms in the 3 largest Protestant denominations in the 1840s, this comprehensive work lays bare the social and religious divides that culminated in secession and Civil War. Historians often emphasize status anxieties, market changes, biracial cooperation, and political maneuvering as primary forces in the evolution of slavery in the United States. But Wright here instead foregrounds the pivotal role religion played in shaping the ideological contours of the early abolitionist movement. It does go on, but I've got so many books to get through, I'll keep it very brief. But I think this will be a fantastic addition to my understanding of that time. I've read political and economic studies of abolitionism and slavery, but this one actually looks at the religious, particularly as it pertains to the Protestant religion and what role religion played in slavery and its demise. So, Ben Wright, Bonds of Salvation by LSU Press. The next one is sort of along the same lines, or at least a little bit later in the era. I'd say late 19th century. This is Forgotten Legacy. William McKinley, George Henry White, and the Struggle for Black Equality by Benjamin R. Justesen. It's a nice naked hardcover, beautiful. Let's see here. Don't have a dust jacket to. Well, here's a picture of. There's McKinley and George Henry White. So, I was fascinated by this, and especially after I had interviewed. Let's see, for the Black Cabinet. I was just intrigued by that whole story. and interviewed the author. And, you know, I think she did talk about McKinley and his role as we moved into the early 20th century. And yeah, so this book, I've got blurbs on the back here, but I'll just read to you. Let me just get this off the screen there. Okay, Benjamin R. Justesson has spent more than 3 decades restoring the hidden history of a generation of African American leaders who came to prominence in the decades, after Reconstruction. That's it. In this compelling new study of the relationship between North Carolina Congressman George Henry White and President William McKinley, Justesson shows in exquisite detail how 2 disparate Republicans grappled with the mounting racial tensions afflicting the South and the nation. Yes. Yeah, I do believe Jill Watts had, and that was the author of The Black Cabinet, she had talked about McKinley, and I don't think it was in glowing terms at all, but this one, it's interesting. Let me read another blurb here. Actually, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I don't have a pub sheet for this one, but with Forgotten Legacy, Justesson rewards his readers with another epic story that weaves the African American experience into the larger landscape of American politics. By expanding on the story of North Carolina's Congressman George Henry White, Justesson ties White even more closely to his ill-fated mentor, President William McKinley. He offers an engrossing portrait of 2 extraordinary men whose relationship challenged the prevalent mores of our turn-of-the-century country. So I'm intrigued by this. I want to know exactly what their relationship was, how they worked together, or, were they at odds at times here? And it says, obviously he was assassinated, McKinley was, so that's why it's ill-fated. Maybe he wasn't able to get very far, obviously. But let's see, it's broken up into sections. It covers like a 3-4 year period, 1897, 98, 99, and 1900. All right, well, either way, I am just thrilled, pleased as punch, as it were, to take a look at this. I love reading books that take a look at a very maybe kind of previously hidden type of, era in our history, or a moment in time, as it were. Those things are interesting to me. Those are the things that get missed in the big, history textbooks and surveys. So, again, I love it. And the final book from LSU Press that I had requested kind of goes in with my readings on, just colonialism and the Spanish Empire, the Caribbean studies, Haiti, Dominican Republic, that kind of stuff. But this is Constructing the Spanish Empire in Havana, State Slavery in Defense and Development, 1762 to 1835 by Evelyn P. Jennings. It's another naked hardcover, really beautiful book. So I don't have a pub sheet on this one either, but I'll just read you a blurb here. Oh, actually, there is a description on the back. Okay. Constructing the Spanish Empire in Havana examines the political economy surrounding the use of enslaved laborers in the capital of Spanish Imperial Cuba from 1762 to 1835. In this first book-length exploration of state slavery on the island, I didn't realize this is the first book-length study of slavery in Cuba. Does that sound right? I guess it is, because they said so. Evelyn P. Jennings demonstrates that the Spanish state's policies and practices in the ownership and employment of enslaved workers after 1762 served as a bridge from an economy based on imperial service to a rapidly expanding plantation economy in the 19th century. Jennings places the processes of building and sustaining the Spanish Empire in the imperial hub of Havana in a comparative perspective with other sites of empire building in the Atlantic world. Furthermore, she considers the human costs of reproducing the Spanish Empire in a major Caribbean port, the state's role in shaping the institution of slavery, and the experiences of enslaved and other coerced laborers both before and after the beginning of Cuba's sugar boom in the early 19th century. So it's about a 200-page work, slightly less if you exclude the notes, bibliography, and index and all that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to exploring that further, especially since it's the first supposedly, book-length study of slavery in Cuba. I know Gidget's going to start. There she goes. I knew it. Hold one moment, please. And we're back. So yes, I'm going to show you the next two books are big chunksters. Oh, so heavy. Wow, yeah, this one I should have listed as my book for March of the Mammoths, but I had so many other, I had a couple of other commitments and was not able to really commit to a mammoth book this month. Although I consider the Brothers Karamazov pretty damn big. It's not 800 pages, but it gets pretty close. Anyway, this is The Enlightenment, The Pursuit of Happiness, 1680 to 1790 by Richie Robertson. This is put out by Harper. Look at this. Look at this. Love it. It's a magisterial history that recasts the Enlightenment as a period not solely consumed with rationale and reason, but also driven by the pursuit of practical means to achieve greater human happiness. And I'm pretty sure we've seen this on another channel, and maybe a couple of others, actually. But this will be fun to dig into. I'm hoping in the next month or so I can really start to crack into this. One of the formative periods of European and world history, the Enlightenment is the fountainhead of modern secular Western values, religious tolerance, freedom of thought, speech, and the press, and rationality and evidence-based argument. Yet why, more than 300 years after it began, is the Enlightenment so profoundly misunderstood as the expression of soulless calculation? The answer may be that, to an extraordinary extent, we have accepted the account of the Enlightenment given by its conservative enemies. That Enlightenment necessarily implied hostility to religion or support for an unfettered free market, or that this was, quote, the best of all possible worlds, end quote. Richie Robertson goes back into the long 18th century, from approximately 1680 to 1790, to reveal what this much debated period was really all about. So, got that big chunkster. Woo! Love it. The next big one, we're heading back to the Founding Fathers, back over to this side of the pond. And we're looking at good old George Washington. This is another, it just amazes me how many books can be written about one man, one person, one event, whatever. But, the new books on Washington, they just keep coming. It's a fascinating topic. It really is. This is George Washington, The Political Rise of America's Founding Father, by David O. Stewart. He is also the author of The Summer of 1787. I have that. He is a good writer, and, I've read his work, and so I thought I would check out his take on George Washington. This is a brand new release by Dutton Books. Let's give you a little rundown here. A fascinating and illuminating account of how George Washington became the dominant figure in the creation of the United States of America. Washington's rise constitutes one of the greatest self-reinventions in history. In his mid-20s, this third son of a modest Virginia planter displayed misjudgments and an excessive ego that blighted his military career. But by his mid-40s, that headstrong, unwise young man had evolved into an unassailable leader who was unanimously chosen as the commander-in-chief of the fledgling Continental Army. By his mid-50s, he was unanimously elected the nation's first president. How did Washington emerge from the wilderness to become the central founder of the United States of America? In this remarkable new portrait, award-winning historian David O. Stewart unveils the practical political education that made Washington a preeminent politician and America's most essential leader. All right, let's see. Kind of follows him on his journey from the House of Burgesses and Justice of Fairfax County Court then his role in the Second Continental Congress, his generalship in the American Revolution. Um, wow, this looks pretty damn good. The lessons in leadership he absorbed along the way would be invaluable during the early years of the Republic as he fought to unify the new nation. So I'm sure this book is probably very prominent at your library as a new history on the new history and new release shelf or whatever. But yeah, check out George Washington, The Political Rise of America's Founding Father by David O. Stewart. And I've got to see when my schedule opens up so I can get cracking on that one as well. All right, moving to some smaller books, which is a good thing. Sorry about that. We've got a couple of great books also from Casemate Publishers. This one was sent to me. Wasn't even aware of it. But it fits in with my studies on just generalship in World War II, specifically amongst the Germans and the Nazi the high military leadership there. But this is a new release called, and this is translated for the first time into English. This is General Erich Hoppner, A Military Biography by W. Schall de Beaulieu. I'm so sorry about my French. I'm incapable of making those inflections. I'm just incapable. But it's translated by Lyndon Lyons. And this is part of their Die Wehrmacht im Kampf series of books, which is also called Battles and Problems of the Second World War. And that's in English. And it is a series originally edited by Hermann Teskey and published in German in the 1950s and 1960s. So right now I'm talking about this series because they do have a series of books with this kind of imprint in the bottom, this tag, as it were. Okay, so these were originally from the 1950s and 60s in Germany, and they were written by former members of the German army in World War II, and they provide valuable and historically significant information on the perspective of the German army of many crucial campaigns and battles. Now being published in English for the first time, each volume has a modern introduction by Matthias Strone, head of historical analysis at the British Army's strategic think tank, CHACR, it's an acronym, and professor of military studies at the University of Buckingham. This volume, in Die Wehrmacht im Kampf series, examines Erich Hoppner's leadership of panzer formations in Poland in 1939, France in 1940, and Russia in 1941. Which is, again, I've been expanding my studies not only just into Norway, the early Norway invasions, but the early front in Poland. Poland didn't last very long. They fought like hell, but they were abandoned by their allies. So I've really been intrigued in just reading keyhole histories of that time and just the Polish experience, and just the military maneuvers and what was going on in Poland in 1939, as they were beset from both sides, east and west, by the Nazis and the Soviets. Let's see, Erich Hoppner was one of the most competent tank commanders of World War II, playing a significant role in Germany's early successes. As the commander of the 16th Panzer Corps at the outbreak of war in 1939, Hoppner carried out the main thrust towards Warsaw. The Panzer Corps covered 250 kilometers and reached the outskirts of the city in only 8 days. In 1940, commanding the same formation, Hoppner fought the French Cavalry Corps in Belgium, took part in the encirclement of the Allied forces near Dunkirk, and advanced southwards over the Wagen Line, deep into French territory. In 1941, Hoppner became the commander of Panzer Group 4, which was the main attack formation for the advance on Leningrad. It made rapid progress to begin with, but an increasingly wide and exposed front meant that the attack gradually ground to a halt. After one final attempt to capture the city in the middle of September failed, the Panzer Group was redeployed to the central sector of the Eastern Front. It was there that the Panzer Group was to help with the push towards Moscow. In conjunction with Panzer Group 3, Hoppner's Panzer Group 4 completed and eliminated the Vyazma pocket. Hepner frequently felt that he was not allowed by his superiors to advance on Moscow quickly enough. Yet his decision to conduct a withdrawal in January 1942 led to his dismissal. In this book, Walter Charles de Beaulieu provides insight into Erich Hoppner's ability as a panzer commander, painting a picture of a man who was committed to the military profession, who possessed a strong sense of responsibility, and who was confident enough to exercise his own will. So, never having heard of Erich Hoppner before, but wanting to learn more about how the Panzer Corps operated, the different group numbers and stuff like that, I was happy to have this. So thank you, Casemate. I will take a look. And there's our gentleman right there. So as you can see, that's a slimmer volume. And actually, I think this one might have been sent to me by U.S. Naval Institute Press. Yeah, I am a supporting member of the U.S. Naval Institute, and they have their own press. As you know, I've shown you books that I've hauled from there before on their sales. And in fact, I had a recent, well, not recent, it was last year, around Christmas time, but they had a sale, I think 50% off, and I bought several titles, which I would try to make a separate video just for those books, which are already shelved. Can you imagine it? I've cheated on you, BookTube. I shelved books before I showed them to you. Oh my God. But I will. But yeah, U.S. Naval Institute Press sent me this book, which is under the imprint of Fonthill Books. And this is Roosevelt and Churchill, The Atlantic Charter. A risky meeting at sea that saved democracy. It's August 14th, 1941, by Michael Kluger and Richard Evans. I think is that the same Richard Evans that wrote The Coming of the Third Reich and the trilogy? I bet you it is. Is it the same Richard Evans? It does. I don't. Maybe not. It does not list those books, so it's another Richard Evans, but that jumped out at me. In August of 1941, Winston Churchill braved the U-boat-infested waters of the North Atlantic to meet President Roosevelt face-to-face for the very first time. With the imminent threat of America being drawn into the war due to rising tensions with Japan, the U.S. president needed to fully understand the man who would become his most important ally. As for Churchill, he knew that it was only with America's military and industrial might that Germany could be defeated. The consequence of this meeting, which took place on warships anchored off Placentia Bay, Newfoundland, was the drawing up of a paper eventually entitled The Atlantic Charter, an 8-point document laying out the guidelines for how nations should interact with each other in times of peace. In it lay much of the groundwork for the creation of the United Nations. Such were the tangible results of the charter, which strangely was never signed, but there was much more to their meeting. The friendship and understanding which developed between FDR and Churchill during the 4 days they spent together on the edge of an ocean cemented a relationship that above all others would prove vital to the outcome of the Second World War. To suggest that the circumstances were dramatic in their secrecy and location would be an understatement. The whole episode was fraught with risk, and Churchill loved nothing more than danger. But the result was a binding of the two leaders and a determination to save democracy. So that's fascinating. That's just one whole book dedicated to that meeting at sea. There's a great picture, like a facsimile of the Atlantic Charter as it was published in the newspapers. That's so cool. So, yeah, about another 200-page study. It's definitely doable. Loving it. So, thank you, U.S. Naval Institute Press. I will definitely read this book. All right. Where are we at time-wise? We've got 23 minutes here. Okay, I'm wondering if... Yep, okay, you know what? I got 3 more books, so let's just push on through. Ooh, all you fellow Grant lovers, you know I had to get this as soon as I heard about it. Another entry for my U.S. Grant library. This is Grant's Tomb. This is a brand new book, by the way. The Epic Death of Ulysses S. Grant and the Making of an American Pantheon by Louis L. Picon. And he also wrote The President is Dead. I think I have that one. This is outstanding. This is all about Grant's tomb, obviously. It's about Ulysses S. Grant's final battle and the National Memorial honoring him as one of America's most enduring heroes. Yay. the final resting place of Ulysses S. Grant, the victorious general in the Civil War and 18th President of the United States, is the colossal neoclassical tomb located in the most dynamic city in the country. It is larger than the final resting place of any other president or any other person in America. Since its creation, the popularity and condition of this monument, built to honor the man and what he represented to a grateful nation at the time of his death, a mere 20 years after the end of the Civil War, have reflected not only Grant's legacy in the public mind, but also the state of New York City and of the Union. In this fascinating, deeply researched book, presidential historian Louis L. Picone recounts the full story. He begins with Grant's heroic final battle during the last year of his life to complete his memoirs in order to secure his family's financial future, while contending with painful, incurable cancer. Grant accomplished this just days before his death, and his memoirs, published by Mark Twain, became a bestseller. Accompanying his account with numerous period photographs, Picone narrates the national response to Grant's passing and how his tomb came to be. The intense competition to be the resting place for Grant's remains, the origins of the memorial and its design, the struggle to finance and build it over the course of 12 years, and the vicissitudes of its afterlife in the history of the nation up to recent times. That sounds delightful. I've never been to Grant's tomb, and I've never been to New York City, if you can believe it. I guess I would like to. I've never been really intrigued by going to New York City. I know there's the building of the tomb in process. I'm not a huge mega metropolis city gal. I'm just I like mid-sized towns like Denver. It's very nice. There you go. But I would like to see Grant's tomb. That'd be cool. And this is I forgot to mention, it's put out by Arcade Books. So thank you, Arcade. Definitely a winner for me because, Grant's my guy. Grant is my guy. All right. Oh, yeah. So the next book is a book from Princeton University Press. My friends there, I think I have financially secured them for the next calendar year from my purchases in their 75% off sale at the end of last year. 3 separate orders. 23 books. Yeah, I think you guys are well off. So keep printing those awesome titles. But this is Fears of a Setting Sun, The Disillusionment of America's Founders by Dennis E. Rasmussen. Again, Princeton. The surprising story of how George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson came to despair for the future of the nation they had created, which is fascinating to me. Fascinating. Americans seldom deify their founding fathers any longer, but they do still tend to venerate the Constitution and the Republican government that the founders created. Strikingly, the founders themselves were far less confident in what they had wrought, particularly by the end of their lives. In fact, most of them, including Washington, Hamilton, Adams, and Jefferson, came to deem America's constitutional experiment an utter failure that was unlikely to last beyond their own generation. Fears of a Setting Sun is the first book to tell the fascinating and too little known story of the founders' disillusionment. It goes on, but I'm going to keep it a little bit brief here. So, oh man, I think this might be at the top. I really want to read this one. I really want to understand that. I knew that they were all critiquing their own contributions towards the end of their lives and whether, especially, and George Washington warned of, like, beware of the rise of parties, avoid partisanship. That didn't last. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by that book, and I want to see what that's all about. What are we at? 30 minutes. Okay. I might be able to squeeze in a couple more. Okay. All right, this is by Sentinel Books, and I have this. He's a journalist. I know he's a journalist. I forget where he writes. It'll probably say for me. Oh, well, he's a senior editor at the American Conservative. That's where I've seen him. But he has written and edited for the New York Post, Dallas Morning News, National Review, Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. I have his previous books, like spiritual book, and the Benedict option. But this is Rod Dreher's Live Not by Lies, a manual for Christian dissidents. And I am a Christian, so I thought this might be a really good book to review. So we'll see. We'll see what this is about. Let me give you a little description here. Survivors of Soviet totalitarianism have a warning for us. It can happen here. Over the past few years, America has seen the rise of a chilling, soft totalitarianism, something more Brave New World than 1984. Identity politics are beginning to encroach on every aspect of life. Progressives attempt to marginalize conservatives, traditional Christians, and other dissenters, sneering at the idea of civil liberties protecting their beliefs. Corporations now censor opinions with which they disagree. Technology is inching us towards a surveillance state, and consumerism has dulled our spirits and made us willing to accept a secularism imposed not by gulags but by softer means. This is definitely written for Christians, so we'll see if I agree with his thesis here. But I think he's going to be pulling in a lot of communist parallels and examples, because just from the brief description, he's pulling from like Solzhenitsyn, and we'll see. This says, despite these warning signs, many American Christians fail to recognize the dangers, and even fewer know what they can do to resist. Meanwhile, the men and women who survived communist oppression have been sounding the alarm that their souls and their liberties are already at stake. Okay, so this is more of a... this is more of like a spiritual manual telling you how to live not by lies, how to let go of bitterness, how to stand firm, how to keep yourself and your loved ones in the faith, and all that kind of stuff. So, well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how I feel about it. I'm kind of very touchy about mixing politics and religion. I know historically they kind of obviously have gone hand in hand, all the way back to the beginning of Christianity with the Roman Empire, it just, and then in going onwards into the Vatican and the Pope and the Eastern and Western, divisions between the Catholic Church. I'm very leery, but I'm going to give this a try because I do study Russian history and communistic communist history, and I do believe that it is communism killed more people than Nazis. Not to say that the Nazis were, they're both horrible, fascists and communism alike, bad news bears, and not to be flippant about it, but Stalin was just, and you ask any historian and they'll tell you, and actually Mao might have killed more people than Stalin or Hitler. But, it's like, geez, why? No, well, they're very diabolical commitment to textbook communism. That's why. But anyway, Live Not by Lies by Rod Dreher. So I picked that up. Okay, let me throw in one more. Oh yeah, this was Cornell University Press. This does this cover Chile? But I've been expanding my library on South American countries and their histories, and so this is The Gathering Storm, Eduardo Frei's Revolution in Liberty and Chile's Cold War by Sebastián Hurtado Torres. It's put out by Cornell University Press. This came out last year. And it says here, in this novel take on diplomatic history, Sebastián Hurtado Torres examines the involvement of the United States and Chile during the Eduardo Frei administration, which was from 1964 to 1970, and shows how the engagement between the two nations deepened the process of political polarization in Chile. At the heart of The Gathering Storm is a description of the partnership between Frey's government and that of Lyndon B. Johnson. Both leaders considered modernization to be integral to political and economic development, and the U.S. Embassy in Santiago was recognized by all parties to be the center of this modernizing agenda and the practical work for and the practical work of the Alliance for Progress, otherwise known as the AFP. Hurtado Torres portrays the diplomatic and economic relationship between Chile and the United States in a manner that departs from the most militant and conservative interpretations of U.S. foreign policy toward Latin America. By focusing on the active participation of agents of U.S. foreign policy, particularly those associated with the AFP and not secret operatives of the Central Intelligence Agency, Hurtado Torres offers a fresh narrative about a critical period in Chilean political history and a new understanding of the ways and means through which the foreign policy of the United States was carried out. So, yeah, I'm a wonk. I love this kind of stuff. It's not mainstream reading, but I love it. I'll take it. This history geek right here will enjoy learning about that period. I've got some more new books, but I'm going to save it for another video. Going to open up some packages, see what else has come in, and share them with you. Let me know what you think of any of these books. Be kind. Rewind. Yeah, the Rod Dreher book I know is probably going to piss off some people, but it's just a book. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to kill you. I'm going to check it out. I think his Benedict option is probably the one I lean to more because it's more of a spiritual way of living. That it's not talking about politics so much. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what he's saying here. I don't shut the door on books because I think it might offend me or whatever. It takes a lot to offend me. Just saying. I've got a pretty thick skin. And I can usually dish it out as well as I can take it. But you know what? I try not to because that's not, I don't, why live being hateful? That's a miserable way to live, just hating things all the time. I don't have that type of anger in me. So, anyway, guys, on that note, happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you enjoy these books. I will probably check in soon, hopefully again this week with some more new books. But until next time, be safe out there and have a great day. And if you're drinking, don't drink and drive. And anyway, have an espresso or something. I don't know. Okay, guys, let me know what you think below in the comments. We'll talk to you soon. Peace out.